All right, so it's Todd Atkins, and I'm back with Preston Vaughn. This is going to be episode 2 of Preston's Paradox, and this is going to be pretty interesting because Preston is going to talk about the MMA guru and some of these other people on YouTube and why he feels the UFC has some influence on these individuals. So, Preston, I'll kind of let you start your opening salvo to this.
Yeah, me and Todd both agree that this is a risky topic because he is a very popular figure in the MMA community, and I actually like him. But if you're going to claim someone to be a shill, they have to be likable. That's their job. That's their personality. It would be stupid to get somebody that you didn't like to be a shill. That's their purpose, is to get you to draw to them. And like I said, his old name is Guru. Like they want you to be him to be your authority for information. So him, Rogan, and like just a few guys, but he has the largest live stream in MMA of like active people who interact, comment, actively view. When you're watching a UFC event and you go to all the people that are live for MMA, his is the most active. And I just think if you're a billion-dollar business, then you would want to control him. Or like I was saying, I read a book called The Power of Suggestion by Sigmund Freud, and it's a very great book. I suggest anybody read it. But the power of suggestion, you can, like we were talking about, people putting comments, and he reads every comment out loud. He gets a ton of comments. Yeah, they could control him that way as well. But I like Guru a lot, but I just think he's fulfilling a role. But the first time I thought he was a shill was when he was talking about live scoring. He went on a huge rant, and it was against Ariel Helwani, and I think Ariel Helwani has his own role too. I don't think he's a quite enemy of the UFC as he's made out to be, but that's a whole nother story. But um,
No, get into it. Just drop that part because that's interesting. Go ahead and talk about it.
I feel like you got to have everybody plays their own part. He's the heel, the nose. That you got to have your devil's advocate and the guy that's the good, the bad, and the ugly. Like Dana White says about fighters, you got to hate them or love them. At least you hate them or love them. And that's kind of like what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And when Ariel Helwani, whether or not you hate him or love him, whether or not Dana White hates him or love him, the fans are attracted to the drama between those two and the UFC. And that's one reason they watch both of them. Is all watch all of this is, and that's one reason they've either tried to start a controlling guru too. They've sent all the popular podcasters on YouTube after him or to communicate with him, and he's been like a guest on their show. I mean, it just at one point in time a few years ago, I was like, oh, I'm just part of the go along get along game because I was in the oil field and I realized because I know there's fixed fight stage certain things going on, but I was just listening to a lot of popular podcasts and I was like, these dudes are just feeding me narratives and bullshit all the time. And it was like Bisbing and Anthony Smith. These are controlled outlets. Now James Lynch, I'm not so sure, but I think all those guys that are allowed in the media room and the interviews and the commentator room, I've heard they're all controlled. I've heard that's very specific people who's allowed in there. And I like James Lynch, but I think he's completely controlled in his being where he's allowed to be. And the conversations, I think he's told suggestions on what questions to bring up as well. So, and what not to bring up. Um,
No
and
doubt
then
about it.
Terrence
The
McKinney.
the media people, no doubt about it. 100%.
Yeah. And then he had the thing with Terrence McKinney, which Terrence McKinney made an empty threat, never showed his address or anything like that. So it gives validity that they're attacking him and that he's not a part of the UFC. Like, oh, they were going to put his address out, but they never did. Like, so it's like, and if the UFC wanted to put his address out, trust me, they could. Like, they could legitimately do it. They would do it. Um, so, and then he had a battle with Dan Hardy, which was kind of messed up. I watched this breakdown of him getting knocked out by Carlos Condit. It's hilarious. I thought of all the same things when, because Dan wasn't turning his fist over on his hooks, and it just like you're supposed to be the kickboxer in this matchup. Like, why is it so sloppy? But anyway, that's another. But he got into a huge back and forth with Dan Hardy. They did that, and then have you ever watched The Weasel?
Well, he got into it, Mark Goddard and Dan Hardy.
Yeah,
But
Mark
they're
Goddard
all
and Dan Hardy.
British. British are kind of,
Yeah,
they like to rib on each other in general. It's kind
yeah,
of their thing. So that doesn't necessarily shock me that he would go after other British guys. Bisping, Goddard, you know, Dan Hardy. That's kind of like
yeah,
Benny Hill, I don't know if you ever watched that, but that's kind of like their thing, their shtick, British humor.
yeah. Um, and then he showed up on Sean O'Malley's podcast. But he predicted that Jan would win, right? And then it pissed Sean off, and it rubbed Sean wrong. So they're no longer friends. And I don't know. It seems like a lot of fluff drama that could just be like all soap opera to me. So, um, oh, he gets a lot of video and frames of UFC content that I would be instantly copyright infringement for. Like, I don't know how he gets away with some of it, honestly. Like, I've been reported for some of the pettiest things ever. Like, little frame by frame clip where seconds are taken out, like way more edited than his, and it had been copyrighted. And then he's got all kinds of stuff on his page like that. So,
Yeah, that's
um,
interesting there because you're right. Usually you can't take UFC's content and put it anywhere without getting striked by them, whether it's Twitter,
it,
YouTube, anything.
well, we can't. um,
That is
but
kind
he's
of
really
that
savvy.
is interesting.
Yeah, but he's really savvy about a lot of information. Like I said, from week to week, say we'll have back to back to back to back cards. Even on that fourth week, he'll have all the information he needs on that Monday, drop a full breakdown and prediction about fighters that you would have had to go watch and research. And like, how are you getting all this information? Like, you have a team that's helping you. Because I know that when I break down stuff, and it takes time, it's not just, and how do you, it just, I get it. You live at home in your parents' basement, grandparents' basement, so and you don't have wife or kids like I do. So this is all you do for a living, and he's probably got time to do it. But the latest thing that set me off that you saw was the Hamzat video, and he's kind of being a hypocrite with Leon Edwards, even though he's the British guy. But they're pushing this narrative that uh, Hamzat can't make weight. And he pushed that whole narrative that, but he didn't say anything about Jeff Neal, really. Same thing with him. He didn't bring up the Jeff Neal. And then they're attacking Hamzat over and over and over again because I think they were protecting Colby Covington. That's my opinion, is they didn't want make it look like he could still make welterweight. And then he's calling all these people out, said he signed the contract, but then Guru goes after him as like a liar and a coward. And he does a lot of attacks on Dagestani fighters, Ali Abdelaziz fighters. Now I'm not the biggest Ali fan, and I understand he's got his own problems, but I think a lot of that's propaganda, and a lot of it's done to demonetize his crew. That's I they use all the agents, fighters, and to demonetize each other and clout kill and attack. And the more drama between them brings everybody down to the same level of drama. And it's all goose and gander for the UFC, and they're all on the same level now. Everybody's on the same petty level while they're under the UFC umbrella, and that's kind of how I feel about all the drama. And then he never pushes, like, he pushes the bad judges narrative. He never pushes like, oh, this is rigged. The athletic commissions, Vegas is rigging this with the mafia. I've never heard that come out of his mouth, not one time. Like, it's always like negligence and the narratives that they want you to believe that it's just that a judge could really score that fight for Cheeto Vera, and that's just bad judging. Like,
Yeah, and it's
no,
convenient
that's
for the UFC. I've said this before. The UFC can let the refs take the blame. Dana White can even come out and criticize them. And then they just bring them back the next show. The same people.
yeah.
So it's not
And
like they
his
care. you
his
know?
hiding it is getting way worse too. When you watch the post-fight press conferences, like you can see that his acting, like if you know what's going on, you can see it. You can read his eyes. It's not like, but if you have no clue and you're just believing everything he's telling you, you're gonna be like, wow, he's shocked, he's flabbergasted.
I mean, if they fired some of these judges, that would be different. They don't.
Yeah, but
They
that's the
let them
same
take the
ones
heat and
every
then they
single week.
bring them right back.
Yeah. Um. So what got me is I don't want this to rub Charles Oliveira fans wrong, but is he'll make the most popular picks for the popularity of his channel. Like I know that he knows that Islam was going to beat Charles, but he picked him because Charles had that pulse. Like he's not stupid, and he makes a lot of choices based off popularity, and I've noticed that that's something he does too. See, like something like this going after him, like if he had a channel that was bigger than his, that like had a positive pulse, he would never go after it. Like he would never do something like this. So, but he slanders fighters that are looking out for their best interest of their career. Like, like if they want more money, or if they're in a disagreement, he sends his minions after them. He makes a video. Chael Sonnen does this too. Chael
Oh yeah.
Sonnen's another guy that controls
No
the pulse
doubt.
of the
No
community.
doubt.
As soon as you start battling with the UFC, he's gonna make a 20-minute video of how big of a piece of shit you are, and like, so that was one of the things that I've noticed is yeah, when he complained about fighter pay, and that's another thing he said, yeah, the fighter pay, I don't like fighters getting paid too much money, then they don't fight. That's right out of Dana White's mouth. Like, so yeah, and then he's got multiple accounts like promoting him, like the Andrew Tate thing, like and they're all copying and mimicking and clipping, and it's kind of like there's a team working around him. Like I said about the recording footage and the research, it's like it's not just him. That's I feel like there's help there. So but let me see. I wrote down a bunch of notes.
Let's talk about Jesse on Fire since you brought him up.
Okay. Yeah, the first time I heard about Jesse, because I was in the conspiracy realm and I think he was brought to the forefront to make other conspiracy theorists look like buffoons, and that's why they got a control of him, because he had kind of a popular voice, and then he got on the Bisbing show, and I'm not sure if he's controlled or not, but I think so. And then they tried to get him to do a show with Guru, and Guru's like, "Nah, you're just gonna mess up my image." Like they couldn't even collaborate. I don't think they vibe well either. They're two completely different personalities. So
No, I just think that I don't think Jesse's on UFC payroll. I think he wants to be, and I don't think
yeah.
he's made any secret of that he would like to work for Dana White. He's always sucking up to him on his videos. If he makes one that seems a little negative, he'll take it down. If it seems a little negative toward Dana, he might leave it up for a little while, but eventually it gets erased, which probably
Yep.
means someone reached out to him and told him to take it down, obviously. And then
Yeah.
people will ask, hey, why'd you take this down? He won't even address it. So, yeah, there's obviously some people trying to push his buttons and whatnot. And like I said, I've been around from the beginning, so I know the UFC does some of that stuff to people. And
Oh, they send like a whole bunch of fake accounts after people, and
no, I
if
mean, for example, the website fightsport.com, Dan and Lorenzo used to post on there and argue with us all the time, because there was a group of trolls. I was one of those guys, but I post under my own name. The other guys all had aliases, and they would argue with us nonstop back then. Dana White, Lorenzo, yeah, all those guys. So they were
yeah, I
pretty
think
active back then.
yeah, when it was a lot smaller of a crowd, right?
Right, for sure. So it's not like they're foreign to the internet at all. Dana and Lorenzo and those guys are very active on it. They were active on the other underground too, and they tried to control Keurig Jenis, who ran the
So,
underground.
but the theme with all the people, the Aljamain, James Lynch, Anthony Smith, Bisbing, Terrence McKinney, Dan Hardy, Weasel, Malley. Like they're all popular, nice guys, right? But he got into a fight and argument with them, like a little petty argument. Like there's that's to me that's trying to like give him validity that he's not one of them. Like this is how much he's not one of us.
Well, it might be a
Like,
shtick too. I can go
mm-hmm.
after people, it'll bring me more attention.
Yeah,
That's
yeah. Well,
always the way the
that's
internet
part of it
is.
too.
The squeaky
It's a
wheel
dual
gets the
sword,
grease.
like a dual sword. It has a dual purpose, and so, but it's a lot of cross-platform promotion. Like they share viewers. All of Guru's viewers now will go to those podcasts too, not just his. So I think it's a way to get more traffic flow around the MMA community is spreading his viewers. So,
But the best way to
but
get attention is to go after an attention getter. That's always true. So I think like people that want to grow on YouTube or whatever, it's the people that are obnoxious, the people that act like idiots, things anybody could do. But some people are comfortable doing it because they don't mind all the stuff that's going to come back at them. But
yeah,
that's how you get attention. You can go on any platform and act like a fool and you'll get plenty of attention. If you're
and
serious about what you're doing, you're not going to, that's a slow way to grow if you're serious
yeah,
about what you're doing. But
like Lucas Tracy, he makes that
yeah,
like a bold claim and then he hammers it and like. But
yeah,
the
of
thing with
course.
Guru is he's popular for his absurd, obscene reactions. Like that's what he's gotten real popular for. And that the thing is, like that's what I don't like him for. I like him for his other content. I don't like it when you go on an inbred, racist, bigoted rant.
Yeah.
I don't like being a follower. I don't like sitting there and be like, oh, I'm watching this guy. Now I feel like an asshole.
And
You
he
know what I
doesn't even
mean?
get a
Like,
stripe by YouTube for that. If I
yeah,
did
how does
that,
that go on where you
I
can
would get
attack a whole
striked for
culture of
sure.
people? Yeah, where you're calling a whole culture and race of people inbred and yeah, it's like incels and it's just it's crazy to me. But he gets away with a lot. And so somebody was saying that they were talking to a UFC fighter and they were going to do an interview on TikTok, but then the fighter said, "Oh, I can't do an interview with you. I'm not allowed." Now he's allowed to have bump all these shoulders with people. Like so they've given them permission to bump shoulders with him. Like obviously that's so in all the fights, it just doesn't it's stupid to go after him. Like to troll him, you're trolling a troll. Like so you're just giving him attention. Like you said, it's not good. You're just gonna fuel a fire. You're just gonna make that fire bigger. You'll either get people who hate him or love him. And like a lot of casual fans and like this toxic era we live in love that stuff. It just that's what draws a trend in the crowd these days is just toxic environment. And I think it's sad because I think Guru could have a really positive platform, but I see it going in a more like younger juvenile direction. I don't know. I guess I'm getting old.
No, I mean,
So
I can see both of what you're saying. There is some interesting points you're bringing up, but also, like I said before, how do you get attention on these platforms? By being ridiculous. You know, if you're just straight
yeah,
across the board, if you're just kind of, if you're serious about the sport, like I said before, like some of us are, that's, for example, like when I had Miguel Iterate, Mike Davis, these guys that are on my show regularly. These are guys who've been around the sport from the beginning. You know, Mike's promoted over 200 shows. Miguel's match made probably God knows how many. These guys are serious about the sport. They make a channel that's probably the best MMA history channel there is, but it doesn't get near the attention of MMA Guru or Jesse on Fire. Those guys don't know anything about the sport. You know what I mean? Jesse on
yeah,
Fire, MMA Guru, those guys don't know anything beyond the UFC. They probably never been to a regional show in their life. You know what I mean? Ever. They
Yeah.
don't care
I
about
actually
the
had more
sport.
fun at a regional show than I did at a
Yeah.
UFC event.
Yeah, these people don't care about the sport. They're not interested in it. They just want to get something from it, you know. So they try to let me go on your show, Michael Bisping. Let me go on your show, Brendan Schaub. These people that those guys all want attention after fighting, so they're willing to bring these people on who have some attention, but they don't know anything about the sport. They really don't. So it's like, to me, it's stupid, but some fighters suck up to that kind of stuff because they still want attention. The guys from the old school
Yeah.
don't care about that stuff. You'll never see them suck up to MMA Guru or Jesse on Fire.
I
Those guys
think
don't care.
if fighter pay was really good, we wouldn't have that issue, I don't think. Like if they were making like if they were making like pro athlete pay, they're not gonna pay these dudes no mind and these YouTubers. Like they'd be nothing to them if they were like getting paid like baseball players or basketball players. They'd be like, I don't give a shit what that dude says. Like, but now they need that attention because they need YouTube money. A fighter actually needs YouTube money, and that's crazy to me. Like,
You make an interesting point there because you don't see any of these YouTube boxers sucking up to these clowns.
yeah,
You
no,
know,
you don't. That's true. So then none of them are even calling out Jake Paul. They're like, I don't need. So, but yeah, I just I see it. He rubs me wrong with the bias stuff. I don't like the Dagestan hatred and the Western, the Eastern hating stuff. But yeah, I like him, but I think they're trying to control him. I sent him I got I'm a member of his chat, and I sent him a chat, and I said, asked him if he read the Sigmund Freud book, and are you aware that they're trying to control you? And he kind of just like went silent and read the question out loud. And he goes, I don't know, man, and then just kept going. So it was kind of an interesting response. I should have screen recorded it. So
but I think fighters are always going to pay attention to people like that who call them out, who say bad things about them. You know, there's all kinds of fans who do that, but when you have a fan who's got a platform and he says something bad about a fighter's going to respond to that person most of the time. Most of the time.
yeah,
So, that
but
doesn't
the people
necessarily
he's
shock
really
me.
talking bad about uh, aren't interacting with him. Like the people that he's really slandering aren't the ones
Right.
interacting with him. So it's just the people he's like having, yeah, good British banter with, I guess. It's kind of like joshing around, having a good time. Stuff that you would say to your buddies face to face, kind of. It's not like talking shit to each other. It's not serious. But the stuff he says about he would never say that stuff to one of their faces, Habib's faces, or you know what I mean? Like never in a million years. So I don't like it when fans say things online that they would never say to the person they're talking to or like in person in general. Like the internet had made you become like a person where you say shit that you wouldn't say in person because you're a nice person in person, not because like why can't you be that online? Like I don't understand why that third party disconnect happens.
Well, I
So
think when people are young, I was like that when I was young. But when you're older, I think when you're older, you don't really care about stuff as much. I think when you're young, you have a lot of passion for the sport, like you, Lucas Tracy, and these people. They're just getting exposed to the sport. They have a lot of passion. They want to tell people what they think about,
yeah,
the sport. They want to say, "This is my opinion," and I want you guys to know. I want you guys to agree with me, or I want you guys to know what my opinion is. And they try
yeah,
to be as loud about it as they can. And that's how the internet was in the beginning too, with the early MMA crowd. But I think as you get older, you, me, other people, you don't really care so much about that. If you love the sport, you're still talking about it like us, or this is stuff like I said, me and Mike Miguel, this is stuff we would have done anyway, if we were on the phone. So
yeah.
it's just we were
Might as
doing
well
it on
record
YouTube.
it.
Yeah. So I think in the beginning when you're young, some people want everyone to know their opinion, but that can backfire, like you mentioned, because there are guys out there that will hunt you down if they find out where you're at. They will confront you. MMA Guru can
That's a
never go to UFC event because he'll get confronted by somebody, a fan,
yeah.
a
He would
fighter.
have to have
Yeah,
security.
yeah, he can't show his face at a UFC event, and he likes the
Yeah.
sport, so it's kind of like, yeah, you got all this attention, but you can't go and
You
enjoy.
know how bad he could sue though? Something happened to him at a UFC event.
Sure, but what I'm saying is he can't be a part of what he enjoys. He can't go to
Yeah.
the weigh-ins. He can't go to an event. He probably can't even go to a regional event in the UK because someone would blast him for sure. So he can't really enjoy all this that he's created around himself. He can't enjoy the sport in person anywhere. If he's spotted
Yeah.
anywhere at an event, someone would
See,
confront
that's
him
a
either verbally or someone would just blast
I don't get
him.
why like how that hasn't happened to Kobe yet.
Well, he's a
Like,
fighter, so it's a little bit. It has happened to him. Jorge Masvidal punched him in the face. It
oh,
has
that's
happened to
true.
him.
And for Beast where Doom hit him with a boomerang.
And you don't think that Hamzat Chimaev is gonna, if they're in person
I think
again,
Hamzat
they're
would
gonna have a
definitely
problem.
100% go after him.
Yeah, those guys don't care.
Yeah.
And I think the UFC has a pro. This is where I think I agree with you. Him going after them, the UFC realizes they have a problem. These guys, no one wants to fight these guys, and they can pretty much beat everybody.
So
And
they have to attack him through the media.
yeah, UFC's like, "God, we're gonna have all these guys as champions."
They're not winning the fight in the cage, so they have to win it out the cage.
Yeah,
So I
they're not
believe
even
there's a
giving them fights.
I believe there's a dissension and a power struggle between certain managers and U.S. American fighters where they want to keep it American. I think there's some kind of like inside ego battle going on. I don't know what it is, but it seems like it's East versus West almost. And like it's really strange. It's really strange.
I don't think the
So
UFC wants all their champions to be Muslims from the Russian Caucasus.
yeah,
But
I
they
don't
know
care.
they've signed these guys and they realize, oh crap, we signed these guys and they're
All
better than
champions.
we thought they were.
Yeah.
We didn't
So
realize they were this dominant.
yeah, and it's always like his latest thing is crapping on Islam. So I don't know. It's it's always the same narrative if it's with him. So
And I think
I don't
that's
know.
something
I
the
want to see
UFC
the best
likes
guy.
too, because the UFC doesn't seem to talk those guys up either.
No, like Dana forgot Islam's name in the press conference last time. Like, and then all the MMA media released videos making a joke about him forgetting his name. Like, why is that funny? Like, so I don't know. You can always tell the MMA what what the popular channels are told to release, but because they all release a very similar story, same story, like real news does. They like you seen those videos where the news channel will pop up, and they're all repeating the same word over and over and over again. The MMA media is just like that too. Like it's ridiculous. So
Yeah,
that's
you're
why I
seeing
stopped
that with
following
the
it.
war in Ukraine, like they all use the same buzzwords.
Mm-hmm.
Russia's attack in Bakhmut is culminating. They're running out of steam. You'll see like 20 people say that exact same phrase. There's coordination between all those people.
Yeah, so I you can really tell by the Hamzat stuff. He's been going after Hamzat. And the thing is, like, that's so risky to do. I feel like Hamzat has a very strong following. And for you to go after him, you have to know you have to be a strong following. You have to send a big dog to go after Hamzat and to change the way people feel about him. And I think that's when it back to the original thing. He's the authority to the guru, like the person you listen to. And a lot of people are like NPCs these days. They just turn their mind over to whoever they're listening to, and then they start repeating what they said. So because they're funny and entertaining, and so I don't know. I feel really bad for Hamzat. I feel like he's getting screwed over really bad by them. So I wanted to see him beat the piss out of Colby Covington. That's what I want to see. If you want to call a man out of his name and call him cum shot and all this stuff, then you should have been ducking him while you were about to go make a weight cut randomly. So
I think Hamzat is, well, the problem that, like I said before, you got Hamzat, Islam, Marab, Sarukian.
mm-hmm. But they try to say those Russians
Yeah.
don't sell, and like Hamzat doesn't sell. He's got 2.3 billion people on his hashtag. Like he has the biggest hashtag I think I've ever seen. And they said he doesn't sell pay-per-views. If the UFC promoted Hamzat versus Leon, I promise you it would sell. Like anyone,
They're
Hamzat versus
worried
anyone if they
about these
promote it.
guys dominating their roster.
Yeah.
You know,
But why not give Hamzat the title shot and let him just dominate? Why not just let him run through everybody?
because they don't feel like he can sell in the US, which is what they want.
I disagree. I think he's a draw. I think he's
I
think
do.
he's an insane draw.
Yeah, Mike Tyson was a draw for that reason. He was dominant. For a
Yeah.
period of time, he was running through a lot of people. It didn't matter if they were great fighters or not.
And he's a true gangster. Like he will whoop your ass in the street or backstage. Like you talking shit, will confront you and fight you right then and there. Like that's, and I like that. Like a lot of people don't, but we come from a different generation, I guess. Like I want a fighter. Like that's why I liked Rampage. I like the dude that was really about it. Like, and it's stuff. What do you think about reverting back some of the rules? You have all these promotions that are running back, like bare knuckle boxing, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got bare knuckle boxing. You got knees to the opponent in one championship. You got soccer kicks in Ryzen. You got all these places that are doing these things and publicly sanctioned in almost all athletic commissions. Why not bring them back to the UFC?
You
I
know where
really
they're
hate that
not sanctioned?
wrestlers can protect themselves
You know
by
where
the
they're not
rules.
sanctioned? Vegas.
Yeah.
None of those people can run shows in Vegas. Not bare
Oh
knuckle,
yeah.
not one championship, nobody.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
The UFC keeps everybody out of Vegas. Only boxing can run in Vegas, and that's because they were running before the UFC. Nobody else. Bare knuckle will never get sanctioned in Vegas. Never, ever. Unless the UFC takes it over, then it'll get sanctioned tomorrow. But as long as UFC's not in control of it, it's not getting into Vegas. Not a chance in hell. And same with one championship. Same with all those shows. Getting a license in Vegas is almost impossible.
Yeah. Do you think we covered the topic pretty well there?
Yeah, I mean, I thought you brought up some interesting points. I mean, it does make sense because, like I said, in the early days of MMA, you had a few websites that were popular. You had the Underground that was very popular, and the UFC did try to bring some control over that. And you had like MMA Weekly. Ryan Bennett, he got kind of a job with the UFC. They were kind of,
I got kicked off MMA Junkie forums like 10 years ago. I was the third most popular poster on MMA Junkie, and I made a conspiracy folder on like the off-topic section, and I started getting like traffic flow. I would just randomly keep posting like conspiracies, and they banned me for doing that. I was like, I'm not doing it on the main page. I'm literally like on like the fourth page of the forum board, and they didn't like me posting MMA conspiracies. And that was like 10 years ago. Before I became like a conspiracy, I've always been like follow the money trail kind of person. There's more to what's going on. So,
but you got to think about something. The UFC's talking audience, I'm not talking about the TV audience, the talking audience is on the internet. Mm-hmm. Not like the NBA, NFL, where you got guys talking about it on Fox, ESPN. Every day they have shows where people talk about it nonstop. The UFC doesn't have that. Their chatting audience is online. So
it's on TikTok.
For you to say, for you to say they want to control, it makes sense. And like like I said, this has happened before. So it's not new. I could bring Kirik Genis on here and we could talk about this. I need to bring him back because I had him when they had audio episodes, I had him on. But I think I'm going to bring him on to talk about this very topic because, yeah, the UFC tried to control his forum. Sherdog, same thing. They banned Sherdog. You know, Sherdog was super popular, but
I remember that.
they didn't see eye to eye.
What happened there? I remember they put out a bunch of reports saying they did something, like they released some information that they weren't supposed to, and it really pissed off the UFC or something like that.
Right. Trying to control.
Yeah.
Ariel Helwani, same thing to some degree, although I felt what Ariel Helwani did was kind of low, in my opinion. Because if they're bringing you there, if they're paying to bring you there, they're giving you great seats. They're letting
Oh
you
yeah,
cover
yeah.
this. You're getting exposure by covering it, which he was. Dana White was giving him a ton of exposure. And what does he do?
Yeah.
He goes and leaks this stuff. It wasn't his.
Tells him, does exactly what he tells him not to do.
No, what I'm saying is there are a lot of people behind the scenes who worked on, this stuff, that worked on Brock Lesnar's
Brock Lesnar, yeah.
promo, that worked on all this stuff to make this a big thing for the UFC at that event. And he
And he
didn't
put
think of,
himself first.
yeah, he didn't think about those people. There's people who probably worked tons of hours on that. And for him to just go and put it out, it wasn't his thing to put out, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
I think
And I don't kiss the
Ariel
UFC's
at the
ass,
beginning of his, I think at that time of Ariel's career, I think he was still like stuck in that journalist, like I've got to reveal everything mindset and not just report news. I think he's become more of a reporter now than a journalist, and so
I don't
he's
think it
kind of had to
was
take a
that
back
at
seat.
all. He wanted to be the show.
Shine,
I
yeah,
want the attention on me.
and nobody really cared.
But he
They're
does
like,
that. That's why he instigates fights between the athletes and he wants the attention on himself.
yeah, but I
He
was saying
he wants
nobody
to be the
cared that
story.
Brock Lesnar came back the second time
Now,
or that time.
if he wasn't getting comped into the UFC and that kind of stuff, like if you're just
Mhm.
off like us, like if you're not going you're not getting, no one's giving me tickets to the UFC. You want to leak something, go ahead. You know what I mean? You're not there getting stuff from them. But if they're giving you stuff, they're bringing you to an event, you should have some obligation to at least,
Oh yeah,
try to, yeah.
yeah. That's kind of dirty right there. Is where if there is, do they pay to get in the media? No, or
No,
just free?
no,
No,
they don't pay anything.
they don't pay nothing. So he's getting in front row, great seats, interviews backstage, and it's all free.
Errol Hawani could buy a ticket to the UFC anytime he wants. You don't see him doing it.
No, he
He'll only
doesn't.
go cover the UFC if they give him a ticket. If he really loved the sport, he could still go cover UFC events. He could sit in the crowd or whatever. I'm sure his employers would pay for his seat. He
Yeah.
doesn't. He doesn't care about the sport. Yeah, he's gotten a lot from the sport, but you don't see him going to events and covering events anymore. He's too
Mm-mm.
big for all that. I'm too
He
big to
wants to be a
go. Yeah,
basketball guy, right?
yeah. He doesn't care about the MMA. You know.
So, yeah, that's the thing. I feel like Ariel Hawani is also like kind of like controlled opposite. They've got him controlled too. They know exactly how to control him, I think, with information. They probably got him controlled through his research team. That's probably, I would think, and what the topics they want to talk about, something like that.
I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have a show with several people that were banned from the UFC. Joel Gold was banned from the UFC. He was the one who created Full Contact Fighter. Jeff
Mm-hmm.
Sherwood was banned from the UFC. So I could probably get like a few guys that the original guys who started the journalism in MMA.
If you're banned from the UFC, you can still buy tickets, though, right? You can go to your
Sure.
own. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you think the security there has pictures of people? Throw this guy
Well,
out if you see him.
now
No.
soon they're gonna have those glasses that face recognize you.
They have a bolo out for certain people. No.
Randy Couture's in the building.
Yeah, you need to. If you see this guy, throw him out. No, it's bullcrap. Especially if they bought a seat, they're not going to throw their asses out.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what I figured, but I was just like, that'd be crazy. But Arrow Hawani said he didn't feel safe when they kicked him out of the. They
Right.
brought him backstage, and like he said he was scared for his life. Like
I believe it.
Yeah. So they probably intimidated the shit out of him.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are like serious mafia guys. They could probably put you somewhere in the desert and you'll never even find you again.
Yeah, they were
That's
pissed
my
at
opinion.
him. They were mad
Yeah.
at him for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think they purposely were giving him all those things so to keep him on their side, right? Like to pacify him, to not be constantly talking about Bellator and contract negotiations and stuff like that. And then he just kept going and going and going, always prodding and priding. I don't know why he fought with the UFC so much. I guess it's kind of been his shtick though. The Hilwani. That's the thing. Like I think what I was saying earlier, like Guru, all these people with names have a role. Like he's Hilwani, and that's he has a large form of his role to play with the UFC. So yeah, pretty interesting. The whole the whole UFC with everything involved is almost WWE with the media production, USADA, Athletic Commission. It's kind of like one big show. Like you're getting all kinds of talking points and journalism and things to talk about. Like it's like the WWE almost. It's like almost predictable these days.
Yeah,
Or
it's a
you can
similar model because, like, in pro wrestling, you had Dave Meltzer, right? So he was getting information from people, but he wasn't a part of the media crew. He was just a guy that was doing his thing. Some of the stuff he said was nonsense, but there were people talking to him. So there's always going to be people like that out there who aren't part of the club. But if you want to get in, if you want to get comp to the UFC, you're going to do what they want, period. That's never been a secret. And once guys step out of line, Errol Wani, they're gone.
yeah.
They don't, it's their event. They don't have to let you be there, and they don't need you to expose their event. You don't, they're bigger than you. You know what I mean? They don't, even Errol Wani, he thinks no, they're bigger than you. They decided we don't need you anymore. I don't care how many people watch your show. The UFC is bigger than you. We don't need you. So if you're there covering their event, you're going to do it their way or you're not going to be there. There's no secret about that. But the YouTube stuff that you brought up with the YouTube, that's different. So it's interesting, I must say.
Yeah. So, but with the thing about Guru though, the live scoring is a huge red flag for me. With like, if you're against live scoring, I think you're a shill. Like, if you're that popular, and you're against open live scoring, just because the guy might coast in the third round, he's like, that was his reason. Well, the other guy's gonna have to go full fucking steam. Like, that's the plus to it. Like, he might get to coast, but he's not gonna be able to because the other dude's gonna be coming at him. Like,
maybe. I mean, how many times have you seen we saw it this weekend. Cheeto Vera's corners telling him, look, you're losing. You have to do something. He didn't. He couldn't.
yeah.
Sandhagen was better than him. There's only so much you can do.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's those cases, but there's some cases where you say, like, where you see a guy that gets a point taken away from him, and then all of a sudden he turns into a madman because he knows he has to win the fight. I think it's very similar to that. Like, you would see more of that. Like, so, and it would just take away fraudulent decisions, in my opinion, or even the argument of, even if there are fraudulent decisions, it you can't complain because the fighter was in control of his destiny and he knew what the score was. And you could just remove the argument that it's fraudulent just by doing open scoring. So
that's another topic for another show. I think it was good to end on. I think you brought
yeah,
up some good points this time. I think it's something that people can think about, which is what this is all about anyway. And
nice talking to you.
yeah, we'll see what people think of your points here. And for
Don't kill
everyone
me.
watching this, Preston's Paradox. And yeah, until next time, take care.